Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Aurora City Council's Committee of the Whole meeting. It is Monday, September 14th, 2015. Ms. Hawks, please call the roll.
Ms. Barner?
Present.
Ms. Grandillo?
Here.
Mr. Hettridge?
Here.
Mr. Horvath? Mr. Kovach?
Present.
Mr. Cudley?
Here.
Ms. McDougall?
Present.
Mr. Baca? Mr. Wolf?
Here.
All right, thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the August 24th, 2015 meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval. Any additions, corrections, or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that minutes of August 24th are adopted. Under new business, we have three items. The first is a request to establish a parking violations bureau. The administration is asking that this go on to tonight's agenda for action. Do I have a motion? Or
I can speak to
Mr.
Somebody
DePiero, you
talk
want
to
to
us.
talk to it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very briefly, this is an issue that when I came to the city back in January of 2014, the former chief Rewald and I began to discuss, and then Chief Byard picked up when he was hired on as the city's chief. One of the things that became very apparent is that the city has a very weak system of enforcing parking violations within the community, which makes it difficult for law enforcement to regulate traffic or regulate parking. I wouldn't say it's an epidemic parking problem that we have. However, when we do want to enforce snow bans, handicap parking, and the like, the only recourse we would have is to file a charge in the municipal court, which is not an efficient way of handling parking violations in that it drives the cost up, it's a slow process, etc. The Ohio Revised Code sets forth a detailed process for municipalities like Aurora to set up a parking violations bureau. And actually many around Ohio have it, including here in Portage County. The first step in even starting the discussion is to get permission of the presiding judge of the municipal court, which is Judge Oswick. Her and I have spoken. She has talked with her two colleagues. They are supportive of it and think it's a good idea for the community to go forward. They've requested a resolution from the city requesting them to give us their blessing to go forward with an ordinance. So this would just merely be asking the municipal court to give the official act to allow us to begin the discussion. At that point, we will come forth with a detailed ordinance detailing the process and the fines and that type of thing, which I've already prepared, that we have ready to go, but it's more or less a two-step process. So what you're being asked to do tonight is to pass a resolution asking the municipal court to allow us to go forward with this parking violations bureau.
Thank you,
Chief
Mr.
or I
DePiero.
happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, comments? We have a motion to forward this to council for action this evening. It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Hattridge?
Thank you. Mr. DePiero, this bureau is set up, would this be handled locally within this building? And who will be administering it?
Yeah. Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Hattridge. Yes, we're not exactly sure where the actual bureau would be. It'd probably be handled by the records clerks over in the police department, where payment could be made, and we'll have to work through that. There is an appeals process. We envision appeal hearings to happen maybe every quarter, every couple times a year. We're not sure how many appeals we'll even have, but the hearing officer would be able to hear an appeal, dismiss a parking ticket, amend a parking ticket, or deny an appeal. He or she will have a litany of things they could do. The statute indicates that it has to be a retired law enforcement officer or an attorney at law who would hear the appeals. And again, we don't envision many of them, but we'd have to have somebody to hear those appeals, and we've not really talked about who that individual would be. But it would have to be someone who is detached from the city, couldn't be myself or or even the chief, it had to be retired, it would have to be a retired police officer.
Okay. Mr. Cuddy?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero, would that be a paid position?
We've not talked about that, but I think it's contemplated that there will be some type of stipend, probably small. I would say probably very small, because I don't think there'll be a lot of work involved.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you. Mr. President, Mr. DePiero, because we're involving the county, does that mean that they get a cut of all the fees that are collected?
Mr. DePiero?
Mr. Chairman, actually, the fact that we are going this route means that when we charge someone, when a case is charged, whether it's a traffic violation, a building code violation, or a parking violation, if it is filed in the municipal court, there is a court cost that is attached. So I know you never speed, but if you were charged with speeding, Councilwoman, and you entered a plea, you would be assessed a fine and a court cost. The fine, most of that comes back to the municipality. The court cost stays with the court. I think in Portage County Municipal, it's $90 per case. So that's on top of any fine. So actually, this fine schedule is very modest. I think $25. I think handicap is the only one that is much higher in that it is set by state statute. So actually, this is a more efficient way, and it keeps, I don't think the point is to make any money on the fines. It's to enforce the parking code for safety and for other reasons, to allow snow plows to do their job, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Hawks, please call the roll. I'm sorry, we'll do a roll call. Don't do it. Getting ahead of myself here. It's been moved and seconded to forward this to council for action this evening. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item B is a renewal of existing tax levy. Mr. Paul?
Yes, this is the final year for our 5-year road and bridge tax levy. With collections next year being the final year of collections, because again, real estate taxes are paid in arrears. This ordinance is before you. This ordinance, the only reason for this ordinance is to request the county to give us an estimate of what the valuation will be for next year and the estimated income of this levy at 0.9 mils. This is a renewal, so it's maintaining the same millage. There is no increase in taxes here.
Okay. And this is being asked by the administration to go on the council's agenda for action this evening.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. The final item under new business is a bid recommendation for the 2015 HVAC renovation for the police department. Mr. True?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This actually is to recommend the bid be rejected. We had the bid on August 27th. There was only one bidder, came in $75,000 over what we had engineered estimate. So in conferring with the chief and talking to the lieutenants, we recommend reject all bidders in case just one bid this time. Reject it, and we will modify the bid specification so we can meet the budgetary amount.
Okay. Everybody understand? Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. True, so, I mean, I know that this was in the budget for the last couple of years, so will we submit for new bids in the future, or?
Mr. True?
Yes, we'll be already rebidding the project as of next week, hopefully.
Okay, so we're hoping that by next summer that something can be done.
We've already done something to do. We've already sent out advertisements and so forth to tweak the bid. So whereas all advertisers and will be known, such as not buying a totally new boiler, using some existing equipment, and that's what we've done to bring the price down and keep it within the budget.
Okay, great, thank you.
Right. Ms. Barner?
Yes, thank you, President. And to Mr. True, thank you for obviously denying it, being that it was that much over than what it was estimated. Being that you just sent it out for new advertisement, what is the time frame are you looking at to get some of your bids back and doing your reevaluation?
Mr. True?
Next Friday will be bid opening again.
And at that time, were you hoping to have at least 3 bids as opposed to 1?
We cannot control the market, but yes, we hope 5 or 6 of them.
Great, thank you, let's hope so.
Mr. Hettridge?
Thank you, Mr. Cuddy. Mr. True, how old is the HVAC system in police department we're talking about.
Mr. True?
There are a lot of original parts from the original construction of the building, and it's a pieces and parts system. So you have, you know, the extension that was built on the police department of the addition, and then you have the old parts. So a lot of louvers, ductwork, all that's all original, as well as some of the parts.
So basically, some of these parts, one could be 20 years old, one
25
could be
plus years old.
25.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Right. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to forward this to council for action this evening. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. That brings us to the end of the agenda for this evening. Mr. Vaca?
We got some time here. I got a question.
Okay.
It's come to my attention that a contract was signed for the concession stand by Sunny Lake. And unfortunately, I don't know anything about it. I think we should discuss that and find out what that's all about.
Mayor or Mr. Kraus? Mr. Kraus is not here. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vaca, as I recall, it was one of several kind of special services folks that were explored by the Parks and Recreation Department. And there is a contract, I don't remember the amount, but it was small, to start this year. The city, as you know, chose to purchase the equipment so that as operators of the concession stand might change, we didn't lose the entire operation and have to replace equipment and everything. So the city is, as you know, purchased the equipment, and that is coming in. It's not all in yet, from my understanding. I think that's what I recall.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vaca?
It also has come to my attention that they are taking over the boathouse. Is that a fact, or is that they have control of the boathouse too?
Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vaca, they don't have control of the boathouse, but they are also, I think, operating on a kind of a pilot basis out of the boathouse, which ultimately would save the city some staffing. I don't know that it will be fully operational, though, before the season is over.
Well, because of this is a financial issue, don't you think that this council should have been aware of the contract and had a chance for us to read it?
Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vaca, it was, I think, part of money that was budgeted to operate this whole new construction and development. And I know I would have had the law director look at it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we had a lot of options in terms of operators, and they were, it's taken a while, so I can get you the names of the parties who are doing it, certainly.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vaca?
It seems to me that Parks and Recs Advisory had no clue to this. We knew somebody was going to take over the concession stand, and that was it. The boathouse was supposed to be left out of it, still run by the city itself, the city staff who do it now, and unfortunately, it's not happening. I think the contract, like I said earlier, should have been brought forward to this body here so we could at least see it prior to signing. Is this a binding contract? Can it be nullified because of the fact that it wasn't brought to us? I don't know.
Mr. Tapera?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vaca, I did review the contract, and I don't have it in front of me. I could pull it out and look at it. But my review of it, it did not require council approval because of the the lack of expenditure of funds from the city. I think it's only a 1 year, or even, I have to look at it, I don't recall the exact, but the dollar figure did not exceed the number which would require council approval.
Mr. Baca?
Mr. Law Director, I kind of think that maybe the dollar sign didn't reach the expenditure, but it would have been really cool or nice for us to see it. Just for our own information.
Ms. Marner?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Councilman, Mr. Vaca. I was not aware of that myself. Quite honestly, I haven't been as excited about the process of the concession stand nor the progress with Sunny Lake. Obviously, using it quite frequently this past summer, and I know there has been some hurdles. And from what I'm aware, some of those hurdles have been taken over or completed. But this is a surprise to me that Mr. Vaca just brought that up, and I agree with you 100%. No matter what the dollar figure is, we should be aware of that, and that's something that we should be able to discuss and move forward with. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I would love to obviously see the contract, what is available for us to view.
Mayor, since Mr. Kraus isn't here, he stepped out, could you ask him to provide us with a memo stating the rationale behind it, the expenditure money, if other parties were contracted or contacted or given an option to bid on this or put in their hat as far as being able to take this over? We would appreciate that, okay?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Council. As you know, the whole Sunny Lake project has had some fits and starts. Among other things, there have been issues with trash, and we are facilities, sanitary facilities during the course of the construction. And we have tried to address those, sometimes on even an emergency basis. I think it was the determination of the Parks and Rec director, and frankly, I'm surprised that the Recreation Advisory Committee wasn't aware of that. But I think that the Parks and Rec director felt, and I sort of felt the same way, that it would be much more efficient to get the concession up and running if an outside group other than the city did it, because we were trying to get it going yet this summer. So that that's just some of the background, but we will certainly get you a copy of the agreement. And I do recall, I think it is short term, very short term.
Right. Yeah, Mayor, if I might comment, I know that you've done your administration's done a real good job on keeping council informed on what's going on in the city better than administrations in the past, and we know a lot more that's happening. And I know it's often hard to determine how much does council need to know on the whole list of things that are happening in the city. But from a councilman's perspective, sometimes you get caught on the street by somebody saying what's going on, and you turn around and you have to hate to look like you're playing dumb because you don't know. And so I think that's some of the frustration, I think. Yeah. But again, the communication is much greater than what it has been in the past. But again, I think this is one of those issues where it's a major change in the way we're operating, and council needed to be informed about that. Mr. Vaca, did you have something else?
Yeah, a final word. I think in the future, when this comes up next year, you say this is a 1-year contract. I think maybe then the Parks and Recs Advisory Committee should be aware of it, and then that way, if there's anything to be tweaked. And this council was aware that somebody was going to run that. It wasn't going to be the city to do it. We were under that impression somebody was going to run it. We weren't under the impression that Sunny Lake was going to be part of it, the boathouse and whatever else. And that's the crux of this issue. Thank you.
Okay. Before Mr. Vaca brings up something else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? opposed? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Call me a bad man.